Hey guys, got another big Apple leaks dump for you in case you haven't got your fix yet. Everything from the iPhone 9 to the iPhone 12 Pro and the first look at the notch, potentially. AirPods X over-ear headphones, more news on WWDC, iOS 14, pretty much everything. Okay, so I'd like to start with the iPhone 12 Pro. We've actually modified our design yet again based on some recent leaks. And our mute switch looks like this now. Just wanted to throw that in there. A little tasteful update. So we know it's gonna have a vertical mute switch from Ben Geskin, and Apple iDesigner updated theirs to be more in line with the volume buttons. I like the look. And a thought I had this year, since Apple's making the non-Pro iPhone 12 and the Pro models so different, so distinct, could Apple be leaving a rounded body on the iPhone 12 models, and on the iPhone 12 Pro you'll be getting that boxy design? I think that'd be a great way to differentiate the lineup. And we've apparently got another leak to look at the iPhone 12 Pro from iOS 14. More images have surfaced, but are they credible? So this was shared by Fudge, and it shows the iPhone 12 Pro front from a couple different angles and a new interface screen, which we'll get to in a second here. But from what we can tell, the notch appears smaller. The earpiece is now centered in the middle of that notch, so a little bit more even from our last notch design. I like it. It could be something that Apple does, and apparently this was found in iOS 14, but it's not an Apple image. It's just a placeholder, or so we hear. Max Weinbach says don't get too excited about it, even though it may have been in iOS 14, and by the way, that was confirmed by John Prosser. He was able to confirm those files and share them without a watermark, so they were there. It doesn't mean that it's the design of the iPhone 12 Pro. Could have been just a placeholder made by an intern. It is a very sloppy edit. If you actually look closer, there's a lot of jagged lines. There was even a version without a notch whatsoever. So this does not mean anything. It's not indicative, but it's still fun to dream. And it could be our first look at the notch, as it was in iOS 14, but again, take it with a grain of salt. And a quick note about that notch, even though it doesn't usher in the era of notchless design that we've been dreaming of, it's still an improvement, and it's something Apple will be sticking with at least for a year before they introduce the notchless design. And one thing to note is that it could introduce battery percentage, since it frees up just a little bit more room on the side of your display. And taking a closer look at that interface, it just seems too good to be true. First, we learn about the upcoming design of the camera. By the way, that one Max Weinbach says is still credible, so it's very possible that that could be what it looks like, but again, not completely indicative of the design. So it was just there, doesn't mean it's the full design. So that interface depicts the new widget interface that 9to5Mac mentioned, and like I said, too good to be true, appears right when it was reported on. Varying sizes of icons. Essentially, he designed a Spring Kit interface with 3 different types of widget views: a classic still icon, a new live icon, and a show data or button mode, which is when you would have to touch it. And all of these would be adaptive. These icons, you'd be able to move them around the screen, much like the iOS blocks concept. Jailbreakers had it right all along. I love it when Apple pulls from the jailbreak community for inspiration, and this could be another example of that. And another concept from iSpazio, this one is a direct translation of that leaked image from the iOS 14 build. I like the creativity there. So that's a very good indication of what it could look like on iOS 14. This is really getting me excited for iOS 14, and I don't want to raise my hopes too high, but we're hearing so many improvements. This could be the year. Also, Donglebook Pro chimed in on the authenticity of these images, and they're saying that there is some validity to it, but they cannot 100% confirm them. They could be indicative of the design, but they mentioned that we're still 2 months away from the prototypes being finished. So that could change on Apple's end, and these would be proved wrong. Also, do note what adds to the confusion is that multiple sources have different builds of iOS 14, which has leaked. Some have a newer version, some have an older version. So not all are able to verify certain leaks. Do keep that in mind. John Prosser mentioned earlier that we will be seeing an influx of leaks due to the coronavirus outbreak and the structuring, Apple's prototyping stages being all screwy, and it appears that that has materialized. This is the result. And could the iPhone 12 Pro be delayed into December, the actual release? We might see an announcement earlier, but the Wall Street Journal believes that the release could happen in December. And they actually detail why: because of the issues Apple's experiencing in the prototyping stages and manufacturing of their components. Everything is all over the place, and Apple is scrambling to make ends meet. Also, Prosser has shown us that the iPhone 8, if you were to order one right now, the shipping times are slipping to April 15th to April 17th, which coincidentally actually lines up with the supposed iPhone SE 2020 release date, which is most likely going to be the time frame. And if you're still not convinced about the iPhone SE 2020 release, even more reference is being found throughout the web. My Smart Price is reporting that a Chinese retailer, JD.com, is showing listings for this device, and Prosser mentions that Verizon once again has slipped up about the supposed iPhone 9. That naming is wrong, as it has already been proven on Apple's website that it will be called the iPhone SE, with the 2020 being the version number. And a very interesting development in where Apple is going with AirPods and the Beats company. So first off, Prosser has given us an update on Apple's over-ear high-end headphones, saying we will be seeing them at WWDC. They'll be competing and in the same segment as the Bose 700 series, which I adore, my favorite headphones. And Apple is aiming for a $350 price tag, which corroborates Max Weinbach's report that the pricing will be between $320 and $360. And this is where it gets interesting. So we heard about AirPods Pro Lite. Apple is working on a new version of AirPods, unclear what they would be, possibly AirPods 3, possibly a cheaper version of AirPods Pro, which didn't really make sense. Now John Prosser is offering a solution here, saying that we were thinking about it all wrong. AirPods Pro Lite will be AirPods X, which is Apple's eventual replacement to the Beats X lineup, and they'll be priced roughly around $200 with a release in October or November. So nothing anytime soon, but Apple is looking to entirely replace the Beats lineup, slowly phase it out with new product releases, as it just doesn't make sense for them. It's great to own Beats and all their technology, but still using that branding when they can be using the powerful AirPods branding, the Apple branding. I think that makes a lot more sense for them. And apparently Apple is offloading Beats products to their employees at a special discount price, which could be further evidence of them phasing out the Beats line within the next year or so. And speaking of AirPods, Apple did a little oopsie, as they're shipping replacement AirPod units with a new unreleased firmware back to the owners, and they're unable to pair them with the other AirPods stock as a result, which could signify we'll be seeing an AirPods software update soon to resolve this. And speaking of software updates, Apple has pushed out iOS 13.4.1 as leaked and predicted. This is to fix the FaceTime issue and another issue where on the home screen, if you were to haptic touch on settings, the Bluetooth quick action shortcut wouldn't work. So it's great to see Apple not hesitating whatsoever to fix that issue. And due to COVID-19, the Unicode Consortium has reported that new emojis slated for release in 2021 will be delayed into 2022. So not affecting the emojis in iOS 14, in case you were wondering. These are speaking of iOS 15 and beyond. And 9to5Mac is reporting on a new feature coming to iOS 14 called Clips, which will allow you to use a brief version of an application without needing to download it. So by scanning a QR code, you'll be taken to a little interface, something similar to Android Slices, where you'll be able to demo that application quickly and then eventually download it if you so choose. Some great functionality, and I hope this leads to Apple separating the apps from iOS, where you'll be able to update individual apps without waiting for a huge iOS software update. Probably not going to happen, as they're too interconnected. And another fantastic iOS 14 concept by Alexander Kastner. He depicts a main menu system for iOS 14 or iPadOS 14, where similar to a start menu button on Windows, this would essentially bring menu system integration, a main menu system, to the iPad Pro, and it would be dynamic, adaptable depending on which iPad Pro you have or iPad in general. I think it's brilliant, something Apple should explore going forward, since of course they're trying to make the iPad Pro more and more like a computer. It essentially shows a menu accessible through a dock icon with multiple quick settings there, something that would truly revolutionize the multitasking aspect of the iPad Pro. Now we know that Apple is building up their mini LED arsenal, developing this technology as they'll be adding it to 6 new devices by the end of this year, as reported by Ming-Chi Kuo, but unfortunately they've been beat to the punch by MSI. MSI has released a new Creator 17-inch laptop with a mini LED display. They mentioned that it gets up to 1000 nits in brightness, has all the latest display tech, but of course if Apple isn't first, at least they're best when they release. At least I hope. I commend Apple for the amazing work they're doing for COVID-19. They're extensively innovating here. They're manufacturing face guards they've built an application for first responders to help find testing sites. It's amazing what Apple is doing. Seriously, go Apple on this. I love seeing that. And lastly, a quick report on the Apple TV 6 model that I missed. So this is in collaboration with the Verifier and iUpdate OS. They've released info on this device. Nothing too crazy, but with a report, we know where Apple is headed with the Apple TV series. So they're saying it'll be called the Apple TV 6. It'll now come in 64 and 128 gigabyte configurations. There will be a new kids mode where parents will be able to control certain applications, access to content on the Apple TV, alongside the feature Screen Time, which is coming to the Apple TV. And the Apple TV 6 will be releasing by the end of this year. So Apple has this huge backlog of devices that they haven't released yet. I wonder how Apple will be dispersing those. Oh, and guys, a personal request I could use your help with. If Phone Rebel and Dbrand were to collaborate, which end product result would you like to see? Let me know down below in the comments. Anyways, thanks for watching. That's the latest. Got a huge exclusive iPhone 12 Pro video for you coming soon. Peace.